In a sudden twist of events, a group of elite soldiers surrounded a young boy. As his eyes transformed into an intense iron gray, an eerie phenomenon unfolded. Those soldiers found themselves inexplicably pointing their weapons at each other. A potential tragedy loomed, but bystanders swiftly intervened, averting disaster. The tale commences with our main character, Evan, a young man endowed with a peculiar gift from birth. This extraordinary ability allows him to induce hallucinations in those who meet his gaze. Alongside his father, Pete, Evan often employs this power for theft. On this particular day, after a lengthy drive, the duo arrived at a convenience store with intentions to snatch a few bottles of alcohol. However, their plans took an unforeseen turn when Evan, meant to maintain his focus on the store owner, got distracted. A group of attractive women approached, and one of them whispered to Evan. Instantly losing concentration, Evan's gaze shifted away. Amidst the distraction, the store owner snapped back to reality, realizing that some bottles of alcohol had vanished from the shelves. Snatching a ham, she hurried outside to halt Pete, who was ready to speed away. A disagreement erupted between the two parties. Evan, with limited options, resorted to triggering another illusion. This time, he made the store owner believe she was under attack by a robber, leading her to collapse in a struggle. Seizing the opportunity, Evan and Pete made a successful escape, though luck was not on their side that day. Coincidentally, a passing police officer came to the aid of the fallen store owner. Misinformed about a shooting, he quickly clarified the situation, helped her up, and then decided to pursue Evan and Pete. The situation spiraled beyond their plans, forcing the duo to drive urgently. Along the way, Evan conjured various illusions to outwit the chasing police. Suddenly, a hurdle named Hill disrupted the police officers, causing them to swerve and lose control. Despite the overturned police car, Evan and Pete narrowly evaded capture. Unbeknownst to them, their escapade was caught on surveillance cameras. During this chaos, the leader of a secretive organization named Levin, affiliated with the Department of Institutions, ordered his subordinates to gather evidence promptly. This unofficial secret organization had been hunting Evan for more than a decade. On Evan's 18th birthday, Pete, his father, had prepared a special meal on the abandoned ship they called home. Living there was their only option, avoiding the dangers of staying on land. Despite the unique circumstances, Evan expressed his birthday wish to go to the arcade and play. Pete, concerned for their safety, disagreed, but Evan was determined to enjoy his day. Meanwhile, the policeman who had been tracking Evan the previous day was having a meal in a restaurant, discussing the strange incident. Unbeknownst to him, Ethan, a person with special abilities sitting nearby, overheard the conversation. Realizing that the person he had been searching for over a decade had finally surfaced, Ethan used his powers to manipulate events, leading the police officer to experience a personal tragedy. Ethan's subordinates located the abandoned ship where Pete and Evan lived. Finding Pete drinking, they captured him and interrogated Evan about his whereabouts. Evan, however, remained silent. It turned out that Pete had a history with Levin from the Department of Institutions, having escaped from them over a decade ago. As Levin's team discovered Evan playing games at an amusement park 3 kilometers away, they knocked out Pete and took him away. Ethan made his way to the arcade and spotted Evan. Quickly formulating a plan, he hid behind a pillar, carefully observing the entrance. When several of Levin's henchmen walked in, Ethan sprang into action. Taking the lead, he attacked, swiftly knocking down one of them. Seizing a walkie-talkie, he informed Levin that he had been expecting them and that they were here to capture him. Responding swiftly, Levin dispatched her team to the arcade, determined to keep Evan safe. A confrontation ensued in the gaming hall as both sides clashed. Evan, watching the scene unfold, realized that Ethan's special abilities surpassed his own. In a pivotal moment, Ethan locked eyes with Evan and extended his left palm, seemingly inducing hallucinations. However, the situation took an unexpected turn, and Ethan found himself captured, a high-tech headgear placed on him. In that moment, 2 young individuals arrived, and among them was the lovely Annie. She urgently advised Evan not to keep looking at Ethan and quickly suggested that they all leave. While this happened, Ethan engaged in a surprising fight against the people chasing him. Ethan's impressive martial arts skills, combined with his unique abilities, gradually took down Lynn's subordinates. Outside, On hesitated near Lynn's car. Spotting his unconscious father inside, he reluctantly got in. On, like his father, was made to wear a headgear. Following this, Levin instructed the driver to head back to headquarters. Ethan left the gaming hall without finding any sign of Evan. Stepping onto the road, he created an illusion. The truck driver, under the influence of this illusion, thought he saw a woman pushing a stroller on the road. He slammed on the brakes, blocking the entire road. Chaos ensued as the car behind crashed into the container at the back of the truck. During the confusion, Lavin's driver, guided by Levin, managed to overcome the effects of the illusion and drove the car away. Ethan, witnessing their escape, had to brainstorm another plan to counter Levin's persistent pursuit. Levin brought Evan and Pete back to headquarters, initiating a conversation that aimed to gain Evan's trust. Levin skillfully convinced Evan that their purpose was to assist him. According to Levin, their ultimate goal was to ensure that Ethan didn't disrupt the outcome of the presidential election. The candidates associated with Ethan were deemed undesirable, as Ethan had the power to control them once in office. Ethan had approached Evan, seeking his help to manipulate public votes through illusions, ensuring the election favored Ethan's preferred outcome. The consequence of refusing Ethan's request was dire. Ethan would undoubtedly kill Evan. Levin and his group, on the other hand, claimed to be striving to redirect history in the right direction, returning power to the people. However, Evan expressed no interest in politics, and Levin sought Evan's help to obtain a secret formula in his blood. This formula had the power to create and eliminate special abilities. Yet, Evan remained uninterested, with his sole focus on reuniting with his father, Pete. In light of Evan's priorities, Levin had no choice but to take Evan to Pete's home. Evan figured out that his dad, Pete, and Levin knew each other. Lan teased Evan about peeking into Pete's past memories. Pete didn't like the idea and warned Evan not to trust Levin's words, insisting they just wanted to use Evan for experiments. He stressed that Levin was lying. Confused about whom to trust, Levin showed Evan a photo of his mom, urging him to enter Pete's mind to learn the truth. Feeling the need for answers, Evan looked into Pete's eyes and started seeing images from over 10 years ago. In these memories, Pete was in a big experimental place, kidnapping a child. Levin stepped in to stop him, but Pete managed to take the child away. Back in reality, Pete collapsed on the bed, and Evan realized that the kidnapped child was him. Pete wasn't his real dad, and Evan felt really hurt, knowing he'd been fooled by Pete for more than 10 years. Levin and the organization leader, Jay, talked about their next steps. Levin found out that Evan's blood didn't have the formula they wanted. Jack warned Levin not to activate more of Evan's powers, making him stronger. Jack insisted that once they were sure Evan didn't have the formula, Levin had to get rid of him. Levin tells Evan that even if he doesn't have the special formula, he still has another superpower, stopping him from facing others with special abilities. The leader warns Levin not to go down the same harmful path as Kinniski. The next day, Dr. Mo from the organization arrives for work. The security guards let him in. Annie goes to Evan's room, and she suggests helping Evan escape from the awful lab. Evan thinks it's a great idea, so he and Annie make their getaway. At the entrance, they run into security guards, and a fight breaks out. Annie, who's good at martial arts, fights skillfully, decisively taking down the guards. Evan, watching from the side, also takes down a bunch of guards in one go. Suddenly, Evan feels he must rescue Peter because his dad's mind holds many important memories. Meanwhile, Levin noticed Evan's escape on the surveillance cameras. She swiftly triggered the alarm in the experimental base, sealing all exits. With no other choice, she had to go rescue Pete. Evan, Annie, and Dr. Mo stole a car from the parking lot and fled. On the other side, Dr. Mo entered the control room and unexpectedly grabbed the guards' weapons, engaging in a showdown. They witnessed the three escapees on the surveillance cameras, but on another screen, it revealed that Dr. Mo was, in fact, Ethan. It turns out he created an illusion for himself. In the end, Evan created an illusion to break out of the experimental base. All the guards aimed their guns elsewhere and fired, but someone pressed a button on the road just in time. A barrier rose, puncturing the car's rear tire. The car didn't go far before the tire fell off, causing the car to roll into the forest. Ethan quickly arrived at the scene, but Evan continued creating illusions to make him think they were nowhere in sight. In reality, Ethan had already figured it out, choosing not to expose them and letting them escape. Later, the three of them sought refuge in a motel. The next morning, Evan had breakfast and returned to the room to find Pete already awake. Eager to uncover the past, Evan encouraged Pete to delve into his memories. On unleashed his special ability, exploring the original memories in Pete's mind. On was astonished to see his mother playing with him, a scene that had repeatedly appeared in his memories. Taking a shower, Evan was caught off guard by Ethan, who created an illusion suggesting the room was under renovation. However, Ethan quickly pierced through the illusion, leading to an immediate confrontation. In the midst of the fight, Ethan revealed that the organization's people didn't come because of Evan's interference. They witnessed everything but chose not to intervene. After several intense rounds of fighting, Ethan intensely stared at Evan. He then entered Evan's mind, implanting a memory about a polished scientist named Kinniski. Overwhelmed, On passed out, and Ethan left, signaling that their paths would cross again. Not long after Pete woke Evan, they began arguing. Evan said he wanted to go to the outskirts of Wara, Poland, to find a scientist named Kinniski, but Pete disagreed. Pete knew who Kinniski was. Evan thought Pete had been lying to him for a long time and was a trickster. Pete said he did it to keep Evan safe. He explained that the person who gave birth to Evan is not his real dad. Pete, who raised him, is his true father. They went different ways. On and N took a train to Worrell. Levin found out where they were. They reached a villa in the outskirts, which used to be one of Kinniski's labs. Ethan quickly got rid of spies planted by Levin. Evan and On got in safely. Actually, this was the organization's experimental base from over 10 years ago, where Evan had stayed when he was very little. The memory was deep in his mind. By chance, Evan found a hidden compartment in the wall. Breaking it open with a gun, he discovered a secret archive room. Evan finally learned his true identity. He is Kinniski's grandson. His mom, Sasha, is Kinniski's daughter, and Kinniski did experiments on her. But On still doesn't know who his real dad is. In that moment, Ethan showed up, and On felt really nervous. He suggested to Evan that they should calm down and hear what Ethan had to say. However, Evan wasn't calm at all, and both of them started creating illusions, having a kind of illusion battle. Eventually, Ethan figured out the real Evan, and for a while, Evan was convinced by Ethan's presence. Ethan then revealed that he was Evan's true father. Back during the Cold War, Kinniski created a formula that could give people special abilities. Both Sasha and Ethan were part of this experiment, and they later fell in love. Unfortunately, these special abilities couldn't be passed down, and Sasha couldn't have children. Somehow, though, Sasha became pregnant and gave birth to Evan, who was born with special abilities. Since then, Evan had been kept here for experiments. After the Cold War ended, the government considered people with special abilities as no longer useful and burdensome. So, they planned to eliminate them one by one. Surprisingly, Ethan was the only one who survived this difficult situation. As a heavily armed group prepared to enter, Ethan quickly sensed the danger. He instructed On to take Evan to his villa in Spain and wait for him. Ethan decided to stay behind to confront the approaching threat. Despite using his abilities, Ethan was captured alive by Levin's men. On the other side, On and N reached the rooftop and made a daring jump to escape. On, seeing their pursuers closing in, had to overcome his fear and climb down from the rooftop. In this way, the two of them successfully evaded capture. Ethan, however, was brought back to the experimental base. Levin investigated his blood and discovered that the formula had been diluted. Now, their hope rested solely on Evan. While Ethan was taking a drink of water, a hole appeared in his helmet. Seizing the moment, he used his special abilities to control the staff in the monitoring room, causing the lab to self-destruct. Many members of Levin's team perished, and the headquarters suffered significant damage, with the core facilities of the experimental base nearly obliterated. Evan arrived at the villa in Spain, where he encountered his barely conscious mother, Sasha. Determined to unveil the truth, Evan delved into his mother's brain and consciousness, seeking answers to the mysteries that surrounded their past. Meanwhile, Ethan broke the news to Evan that the formula was implanted in Evan's mind by Kinniski before the government's purge. However, this memory was encrypted, explaining why Levin couldn't find the formula in Evan's blood. The memory of Sasha playing with Evan was the encrypted memory, and those building blocks were the formula. Now, Ethan wanted Evan to join forces to create more superpowers and dismantle the agency. Ethan was eager to rush in and retrieve the formula, but he encountered an invisible barrier. Evan soon realized that his mother didn't want the formula exposed. He listened to his mother's consciousness. Ethan, determined to get the formula, used his strength to break through the invisible barrier. However, Sasha, putting all her effort into stopping Ethan, didn't want him to achieve his goal. Unable to hold on any longer, she took a final, sober look at the grown-up Evan and then passed away. Evan was left in profound grief. In this critical moment, Levin sensed something amiss and sent special forces to raid the villa. The special forces surrounded the father and son. On, utilizing his unique abilities, manipulated the soldiers, making them turn against their own teammates. On managed to break free from the encirclement and reach the doorway. In a sudden turn of events, Lavin emerged, demanding that On abandon his manipulative consciousness. However, Evan seized control of Lavin, issuing commands to armed individuals to kneel and prepare for suicide. Lavin pleaded with On to halt the manipulation. Astonishingly, it all turned out to be an illusion created by Ethan, On's mother having passed away many years ago. Ethan urged Evan to swiftly command them to commit suicide. In this critical moment, Lavin held a handgun to her own mouth. Just then, Pete loudly intervened, revealing the illusion crafted by Ethan, who was manipulating Evan. Pete encouraged Evan to revisit his memories and understand the truth. Ethan tossed a handgun, urging Evan to force Pete to commit suicide. Evan resisted, instructing Pete to leave quickly. Despite Pete's persistent persuasion, Evan refused to comply. Frustrated, Ethan angrily manipulated Pete's consciousness, compelling him to shoot himself. Pete's sudden death shocked Evan profoundly, leading him to immediately relinquish his control over Lavin and the others. In his final moments, Pete implores Evan to enter his mind again and uncover the truth of what happened in the past. It is revealed that Sasha, realizing Pete was a good person, begged him to take Evan away, desiring a normal life for them. Within Pete's consciousness, Evan apologizes to Pete, realizing the sacrifice he made. The father and son bid a heartfelt farewell. Picking up the handgun from the ground, Evan goes in search of Ethan. He finds Ethan at a party scene, where he has taken hostages. Evan attempts to manipulate Ethan's consciousness, but Ethan resists strongly. Evan, unable to control Ethan, witnesses him taking control of everyone at the party, perceiving them as killers rushing towards him. Not wanting to harm innocent people, Evan decides to defeat them using only his fists. Finally, Lavin intervenes to help Evan out of the perilous situation. On approaches Ethan with the gun, and Ethan threatens to shoot if Evan gets any closer. On bitterly accuses his biological father of being heartless. Lavin reveals to Evan that Annie does not exist. Everything is an illusion that only Evan can see, and no one else can perceive her. In a critical moment, Annie shouts for Evan to escape, prompting Lavon to ask Evan to recall the implantation point for Annie. After Evan remembers, it is discovered that the first place Annie was implanted was in the game arcade. Overwhelmed with emotion, Evan, whose overall condition is not good, picks up the gun and shoots Ethan. Ethan falls to the ground and dies, but Annie still exists. In the end, Annie and Evan embrace each other. The question of why Annie still exists lingers, leading to further revelations. Afterward, Lavon takes Evan to pay respects at his mother's grave, accompanying him throughout. Lavon attempts to persuade Evan to join her cause, but Evan expresses a desire to stay in a deserted area. He asks Lavon to leave a phone number, indicating he may call if he changes his mind. Evan leaves, and Lavon communicates Evan's situation with Chad. Lavon asserts that Evan has completely believed in her, and it's only a matter of time before she ropes in Jack. She warns that if she doesn't accomplish it by then, she will personally kill Chad. And so, the story concludes with these intricate twists.